Aloha, this is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing returning guest writer Eric Palicki. He is here to promote his new Kickstarter Manticore Volume Number 1. It is a 56-page, full-color, oversized hardcover graphic novella that is a standalone introduction to the What Rough Beast saga. This campaign is currently underway and it will end on Thursday, August 12th. Now, before we start our interview, I just want to give a brief history about Eric. So Eric is currently writing the 5-part limited series Blacksmith from Ahoy Comics that is in shops right now. Well, the first issue is in shops right now. And he is working as an editor and a writer on another Kickstarter campaign that just finished earlier this month called Deadbeats London Calling, it's from a Wave Blue World Publishing, correct?
That's all correct.
Okay. So London Beats, London Calling, it's a horror anthology graphic novel that's coming out on September 15th at your LCS, and it's going to be $19.99. The previews code for that for that collection is JUL211418. So please let your shops know about that. And also to Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are also releasing Deadbeats Volume 1 also on the same day. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be a re-release of the original graphic novel that was first released in 2019.
Okay, all right. So if you guys love horror, if you guys love music, what a great combination. So if you guys can just, go to your LCS and let them know to order this. Now, I'm going to ask Eric, did I miss anything?
No, that's a very comprehensive list of what I've got going on right now, at least as far as what I can talk about.
Okay, all right. Now, okay, and I'm going to say, before we start the interview, how are you doing today, Eric?
I am doing well. I'm very well. How are you?
How
are you this morning?
No, I'm doing good. I've already had my cup of coffee. Yeah.
I'm on number 2 right now. Some really good Hawaiian coffee that a friend sent me.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. That's so cool. Thank you. Okay. Now, now for our listeners, either if you're a new listener or a longtime listener, I'm not going to go through Eric's origin story. If you're interested in, hearing how Eric, got into comics, his first comics and so forth, please check out my interview with him in the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast episode number 644, and that was released on June 3rd of 2021 of this year. Now, on today's episode, we'll be, basically focusing on his new Kickstarter, Manticore. So, okay, so Eric, I'm just going to jump in. What is the premise for this story?
Sorry. So Manticore is the story of Sheila Cross, a 20-something med school dropout who is sort of directionless in her life. And one day, a package and a letter from her grandmother arrives, revealing that she has inherited her grandmother's pet monster. Now, this is a world where monsters don't exist as far as everyone knows. So, needless to say, Sheila is floored first by the news that her grandmother has passed away, and second of all, that she has inherited this very strange gift. And of course, this opens up this whole new world for Sheila, and she has to kind of now unravel the mystery, not only of how her grandmother died, but also how her grandmother lived.
Oh, that sounds pretty exciting. And then now, correct me if I'm wrong. So this introduction sounds like it's part of an epic story. How did you come up, with this incredible epic story?
Sure. So I want to really reiterate to everyone that this is a standalone book. This is, if I never get to make a volume 2, if I never get to continue the story, then this is going to be a really satisfying read and experience for a reader. But by the end of the story, again, this is a world where most people don't know that monsters exist, and it opens up this world for Sheila and for her roommate Marla, and it would allow them and us to sort of explore that broader world that we introduced by the end. But again, I don't want people to think that they have to be in it for the long haul if they back this first Kickstarter. It is definitely, when you start picking at the threads of a small story like this, you definitely start to see the larger tapestry that you're building. Kind of, that's a mixed metaphor, but you kind of just sort of realize that there's so many more story threads that you can pull on if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it just sounds exciting. It really is. Can I, off the cuff question, can I ask, were there any like writers, and I'm not talking about comic book writers, but like any science fiction authors, fantasy artists that inspired you to do this, to create Manticore?
Sure. When I talk about writers that I really have loved and have really been an influence to me in terms of specifically fantasy, I most often talk about how I loved Ray Bradbury short stories as a kid. I love the easily consumable short stories of someone like Ray Bradbury or Harlan Ellison. And specific to Ray Bradbury, he wrote a lot of short stories that fed into these larger narratives. And that has really been an influence on this, where the Martian Chronicles are short stories, but they all sort of center around a unified theme, just to give you an example. And then in terms of just for this particular story, there's a lot of Neil Gaiman in terms of our relationship with fantasy that I really explore.
That is so cool. Thank you very much for answering that question.
Of course.
Do you have, I'm just asking, I know you said this is, a standalone story. If you do continue on, with the What Rough Beast saga, do you have an idea how many books you might have in this series?
I think that Sheila's story is five books of roughly the same size. These novella, easily consumable, not quite short stories, but the equivalent of like 2 comics issues. So that's a 10-issue story if you're thinking about it in terms of the typical floppy that you'd pick up at your LCS. That said, even in this first issue, there are at least 2 other supporting characters that I would love to give a little attention to. So, it's 10 issues, but maybe some spin-off opportunities. And of course, this is all pie in the sky right now. We're still working our way through funding of the first one. So I don't want to put the cart too far ahead of the horse.
Oh, no, that's no problem. And I just wanted to remind listeners, and right now correct me if I'm wrong, right now, the campaign, I believe it's been about 55% by now funded?
Yeah, we're 1 week into the campaign and we're almost at 60% funded. I checked just before we went on the air, and we're moving along at exactly the clip I was expecting. I didn't expect us to reach funding in an hour. I'm not a Veronica Mars reboot movie or anything like that. So, we're gonna do what we can.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident we'll reach our funding goal. And then I've got some really cool, stretch goals in mind for if we can get to them before the end of the campaign, including, like I said, I want to do a little bit of exploration of those supporting characters. And I've got a couple little short stories that I'd love to put in the back of the hardcover.
Oh, that's so cool. So listeners, please back this funding, because this campaign, because I want to see those short stories.
And I do want to say, I keep referring to this as my book, and that's a faux pas. This is our book. This is very much Christopher Peterson, the artist collaborator that I'm working on. My partner in crime in this book is much a part of the design work and has made some recommendations about where we're taking the story. And it is definitely a collaborative effort, and it's our book. And Chris is doing the work of his career here, and I'm excited for everyone to see it.
And then for our listeners, as Eric has mentioned, Christopher Peterson, he's the artist. And he also, now correct me if I'm wrong, he's worked on a couple other Kickstarters, like All We Ever Wanted and also Deadbeats. Is that correct?
Yeah, he is. He's done some work with me as an artist for some of the books I've edited. All We Ever Wanted and the original Deadbeats. He drew stories in each of those. He's also worked on a couple of books for Dark Horse. He did a book called Grindhouse,
Mm-hmm.
Open All Night, with writer Alex DeCampi at Dark Horse, and has been involved in some other projects as well.
Okay. And then also, let's see. I also want to mention that your colorist is DJ Chavez?
Yeah, DJ Chavez, another former collaborator through the anthologies. He colored a story for us for the first Deadbeats again. He's also done some color work for Atomic Robo and elsewhere in the comics industry. So it's all industry veterans, all people I was really excited to tap to work with on this book. Our letterer is Matt Krotzer. He once again has done a number of books for Dark Horse, Image, a bunch of the stories in our anthologies with the Wave Blue world.
That's pretty cool. All right. Now, I know you've done a number of Kickstarters, and I know, one of them was, and I'm just going to point out one of the recently miniseries Atlantis wasn't built for tourists. When it came out on Kickstarter, it was a graphic novel, and then it came out through Scout Comics as a 5-part miniseries. Now, my next few questions is kind of like one of those "how is the sausage made" questions. So, may I ask, how did you decide to go the Kickstarter route for, with most of your projects? How did that come about?
Kickstarter gives people a lot of creative freedom. Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists was kind of an offbeat title, kind of an offbeat book. It's a mix-up of horror and it's modern set, but it's got a lot of sensibilities of a Western. I often describe it as H.P. Lovecraft meets Sergio Leone when I talk about the story and the book I'm telling. So I didn't know what the audience was, and Kickstarter allows you to put these projects up, and it's a little bit like a canary in a coal mine. You can sort of figure out if there really is a market for these books, if readers are going to glom onto the stories the same way you do. I'm a big fan of the philosophy of make the books that you want to read. If you're a writer, if you're an artist, you make the work that you yourself would want to absorb. And Kickstarter is a good way to tell if you're not the only, make sure you're not the only one, right? To find your audience. And, Kickstarter is on pace. I've seen a couple articles floating around. It's already July, and they're on pace to have another record-setting crowdfunding year just in terms of comics. And it's like the third consecutive year where they've broken records. So it's definitely proof that there is a market for comics through Kickstarter.
Yes, there is. And then also, may I ask, what are some of the challenges of doing a Kickstarter, and how did you overcome them?
Well, so I work a full-time job, and I also have writing responsibilities. So the biggest challenge right now is organizing these campaigns and being able to do the marketing work, to do the legwork on social media and organize podcast appearances like this one, or articles on news sites, while at the same time, keeping all those other plates spinning.
Yes.
That's the big challenge. It's like having an extra full-time job on top of, whatever your normal responsibilities are.
Yes. And then I have to ask this question. Packing and shipping. How, if you don't mind me asking, do you contract that out? Do you have it all come to your place and you just have a pizza party or something?
Exactly that last one, right? There's a company called Genesis that makes these wonderful cardboard mailers. I'm sure if you've backed a lot of Kickstarters, you've seen them. They're perfect cardboard mailers designed for sending graphic novels, and that makes it very easy. I bought a label printer and a scale. So that I can just go to stamps.com, or I use Indicia, which is a very similar service, and just print the labels and package them myself. And that way they're pre-labeled. You don't have to give your postal worker a heart attack when you walk in with 100 unlabeled packages at a time. But it's, the number of books that we're moving, I'm not too concerned about this. Something like the Deadbeats anthologies, where we had nearly 1,000 backers on our first campaign. Wow. And A Wave Blue World was responsible for the fulfillment of that one. And I don't know what that was like. I don't envy Tyler over at A Wave Blue World for having to fulfill those.
Okay. But I'm just gonna, and like I said, Eric, sorry, what you're doing with Kickstarter, it sounds great. It must sound fulfilling. I mean, it's hard work. Like you said, it's hard work, not only trying to get your creative team together, writing, other types of stresses. And it also includes also trying to do the PR work, literally the packaging and so forth. But my question is it really, it's going to sound like a stupid question, but is it really fulfilling in the end when you see them all go on, this is great?
Oh, absolutely. And you see people share their excitement on social media when they actually receive the packages. And that's, it's people posting about mail day and these cool packages they got. And the nice thing about this is, I love the local comic store experience. And I've some of my best friends in the world I met because we used to hang out, or we would hang out on Wednesdays. And that's wonderful. But when you do these Kickstarter packages, you can throw in lots of little extras, pins and buttons and stickers. And it's like Christmas. It's this really cool experience where you get to open the package and find out, what cool extras did the creators throw in for you.
Oh, yes. Yes. Because I've backed, a couple Kickstarters, and it's so cool when, you open something, it's like, I didn't expect this, because I didn't know that a certain stretch goal was, reached. Because, all I know is I just back it and I expect it in the mail. That's all it is. But it's so exciting.
Yeah, and there's definitely this cool feeling of being privy to secret knowledge when you back a Kickstarter, right? Like you open the package and it's a book that most people haven't heard of, and it's a wonderful story, and it comes with all these cool items, and like I get to be the person who, even if this book goes on, like Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists went on to become a Scout miniseries after the Kickstarter was fulfilled, but there's that element of I was on the ground floor. I discovered this before everyone else.
Oh yeah, and if you don't, I'm sorry, I'm going to add on to that. And like you said, is not only are you on the ground floor, but but also too, you get to tell your friends, and then when like you said, when Atlantis wasn't built for tourists, when Scout Comics printed that out, it probably took a few, I can't remember, like a few months or so before it hit shops. But already someone who had the graphic novel already read it and just told their friends, oh, when it comes out, pick it up. All that buzz and excitement, it spreads.
Yeah. One of the coolest things that had happened to me with that book was after the Kickstarter was fulfilled, but before the issue came out, a colleague of mine, or a contemporary of mine in the comics industry, came up to me, and I didn't even know he had backed the project. And he said, hey, I heard Scout picked this book up. that's great. It really was a book that deserved a wider audience. And that was just the best compliment that you can get as a comics creator that uses Kickstarter.
Ah, that's so cool. That is so cool to hear. Um, sorry. So Eric, I'm going to ask, before I move on, any last words or thoughts about Manticore, your current Kickstarter right now?
Sure. I wanted to just talk just a little bit about the format.
Yes.
We are doing this in, it's going to be roughly 9 by 12 inches hardcover. We're really sort of borrowing from that, that European, French, Belgian graphic novella style that I kind of fell in love with it because other American creators have done similar projects through crowdfunding. Ron Mars and Matthew Dow Smith did a couple of books through Ominous Press, and then Chip Mosher and Peter Krause did Blacking Out, also on Kickstarter. And I just sort of fell in love with the format, and I really like the idea of this item that is going to be a very beautiful object in its own right. I think in my previous appearance, I talked about my first experiences with comics and how I discovered comics because a friend of mine had a ragged issue of Wolverine lying around his house, and the spine was rolled and the cover was barely still attached. It was falling apart, but I loved the experience of reading that. And I want Manticore to be that sort of experience for someone. Someone can pick it up. And the reason that we're making it a hardcover and making it durable is because I want it to be something that can last, and something that, it will have that same experience to read it, but it won't fall apart on you. And so that's kind of the goal with this book.
No, and that's great. And and it's great because also too, it's gonna stand out a little more among. Now, I love collected editions, trade paperbacks and so forth, but it's going to stand out a little bit more for me. I'm going to say it's for me, because if I look at my shelf with all my hardcovers, I have to spend 2-3 minutes to go, which one is it? Which one is it? But with the size of Manticore, it's like, oh, there it is. If I want to reread it again. Yeah.
And I hope you do.
Yes. Okay. So, now I'm going to move on to Deadbeat's London Calling. And again, I'm going to mention, it's going to be in your LCS on September 15th, along with a reprint, correct, of Deadbeats Volume 1, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So may I ask, can you give a brief description of, well, I mean, we already covered it already. What am I saying? So basically, it's a horror music. It's a horror music anthology series, right?
Yes.
So I'm, this is an off the cuff question. Was it a Wave Blue World that came up with the idea of this anthology series, or how did the idea of an anthology series come about for this?
Sure, that was all the work of Joe Corallo, my co-editor on both volumes. He actually came to the idea of wanting to create an anthology of stories that all involved music in some way. And the framing sequence that he envisioned for the book was similar to the Crypt Keeper in the old Tales from the Crypt stories, but in this case, it would be a sort of mysterious proprietor of a record store, the Deadbeats record store of the title. And so we created the shopkeeper. Her design was by Lisa Sturl, and it's just this pretty, this phenomenally creepy, somewhat otherworldly monster who runs this record store. And as she's giving a customer, the reader, a tour around the record store, we use it to segue into all of these different musically themed anthology horror stories.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to ask, for London Beats, London Calling, who were some of the creators involved in the London Calling volume?
Sure. Well, I myself have a story that I'm really proud of. I just signed off on the colors this morning, and it was a uh, it is a collaboration with a Sri Lankan artist named Sachi,
Mm-hmm.
and it tells the secret true story behind one of the most infamous celebrity deaths of the 20th century. And I'm not going to say anything more than that, but I am extremely proud of the story I did. But in terms of the other creators that we got to work with this time, we've got Ron Mars working with a new artist named Salvador Velasquez. They just turned in this phenomenal story. We've got Lila Sturgis, Jody Hauser, Eva Cabrera, William Mesner Loebs,
Oh, yes.
Kelly Williams,
Mm-hmm.
Adam Gorham.
Mm-hmm.
Liana Kangas is actually writing a story this time. She actually drew a story for the first volume, and she'll be writing this time.
Mm-hmm.
A number of creators. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the other creators of note, but it's just a phenomenal lineup. We were as things obviously progress when you put a book like this together. You have doubts. Is it going to be, is it all going to come together in the end? And I will say that it has just been a phenomenal experience. And I think the sequel, if anything, is equal or superior to the first volume. And I'm extremely proud of the first volume. So please do check out Deadbeats to London Calling. And, if you haven't seen the first one, definitely pick up the first volume on September 15th.
Yeah. Okay, now, Eric, your story, you already got me intrigued. So when I get mine's in the mail, I'm definitely going to check that one out first and foremost, But yeah, that sounds so cool. Okay, I'm going to move on to Blacksmith, and feel free to talk more about that, but
Sure.
I just only got maybe maybe one or two questions. So if you don't, now I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Blacksmith issue number 1 came out, I believe, on July 7th.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how are the sales for the first issue?
Sales have been great. I don't have exact numbers. I know that Ahoy is very happy with the book. We've been seeing reorders. People are still talking about it. The reviews have been very good. You have a new book launch. You're always a little bit nervous about how it'll be received. But yeah, Wendell and I and the rest of the team could not be happier with how it's been received, both in terms of sales and in terms of the critical response.
No, but yes, congratulations on that. And then now, according to my research, issue number 2 comes out on August 11th with I'm going to try to pronounce the artist name, Liana Kangas cover. For one of the variant covers or something, or alternate
so
cover.
Liana is doing the standard covers for the whole series.
Oh, okay.
Our variant cover for issue 2 is done by Steve Pugh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
He's a artist on some other books for Ahoy, and stepped in to do this really phenomenal cover, this variant cover. The first issue variant cover was by Jamal Eigel, who is a pal of mine, and he also wrote a story for Deadbeats too. And shame on me for forgetting his name when I mentioned everyone who was in the book. But yeah, he turned in just a knockout first issue variant cover, so Steve Pugh is doing the variant for issue 2. The interiors are by Wendell Cavalcanti for the whole series. And then, like I said, Liana will be doing the covers. And I think I love all 5 of the covers that Liana produced, and each subsequent cover becomes my favorite as soon as she rolled it out. So issue 2 has just got a great cover. We introduced some further wrinkles in this sort of secret supernatural underground that exists in Los Angeles. We really kind of get into the meat of the story that we're telling with issue 2.
So listeners, if you guys get a chance, please pick up the Blacksmith limited series. I've read the first issue. I read the advanced copy of the first issue. I love it. And seriously, I can't wait to read issue number 2.
Yeah, There's just for the listeners who may not have listened to our previous discussion, Jason,
Hi.
it's a supernatural noir detective story about a PI who also happens to be a werewolf, who has years ago abandoned that supernatural side of herself. And then a case pops up that sort of makes her question whether she needs to re-enter that world to take on this case of a lifetime.
Okay. Eric, thank you very much for letting our listeners know what the series is about. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so next part of the interview, I'm going to start asking fun questions.
Sure.
You already saw one of the questions already. How did you and your sister get invited to the X-Men Hellfire Gala?
So Adrienne got the invite first, and she basically took me as a +1, and Marvel was very cool with that on account of, I had written a story for them a few years ago for a book called Guardians of Infinity, so there was at least that tenuous Marvel connection. And of course, this is not how I imagined my glorious return to Marvel Comics would be, but I'll take it. I appeared in X-Core #2, written by Teenie Howard. I'm not sure. Teenie is an acquaintance of mine, and I'm not sure if she even knew I would be in the book, but there I was, Adrienne and I both.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is an off-the-cuff question because when you said that Adrienne got the invitation first, how is that possible? You're a comics book writer.
Well, I mean, she's a superhero though. She's Mockingbird, so she got to go by virtue of her involvement with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Mm-hmm.
So and don't she's primarily known for that part of her life, but we co-wrote a book together, so she's dipped her toes in the comic book writing world as well.
That's true. Yes, that is true. Okay. My next question is, how big is your comic book collection?
I have a lot of graphic novels. I have a lot of collected editions. I have a whole room devoted to the collected editions. I recently got involved in starting to pick up a few, key issues from a collector's standpoint, mostly sort of spurred by the pandemic and just needing an additional hobby on top of all the other plates I keep spinning. So I've been picking up books that have that are collectible but have personal meaning to me. Kitty Pryde is my favorite X-Men. And on top of that, she's a character I got to write one time. So I recently acquired a copy of her first appearance. I have the first appearance of Bobby Morse as Mockingbird, because of the connection to my sister.
Yes.
And little bits and bobs like that. I'm a big fan of trying to find some books that I really enjoyed as a kid when I first started collecting comics in the early 90s. So I've been kind of picking up the collectible variant, like the gold cover of Wildcats #1, things like that. Which.
Wow. Then correct me if I'm wrong. For the first appearance of Kitty Pryde, I know you said you got that first issue. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was X-Men 129?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, was that already slabbed or was it a raw?
No, they're unslabbed, and they're not great. The quality's not great, but it's not something I'm collecting to eventually resell and put a down payment down on a house. But it's just something that I wanted because of my personal connection to it.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I understand. It's kind of like that. Like you say, it's a personal connection. And it's a little bit of that nostalgia. Like you said, that Kitty Pryde is your favorite character. Oh, yeah, that's so cool. Let's see. I'm going to ask. I'm going to start wrapping this up.
Sure.
do you want to promote any of your friends' Kickstarters that are either just started or will be starting soon?
There are a lot, and I
Yes.
am terribly afraid that I'm going to forget some people. Uh, but currently, uh, my friend Kevin Powers is running a Kickstarter for the second volume of his Patriot One graphic novel.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, a sort of new publisher on the scene, Black Box Comics, is running a Kickstarter for their first graphic novel, and I definitely recommend people check that out.
Hmm.
Uh, those are two off the top of my head, and there will be a number of others that I am certain, again, that I'm forgetting. But I guess, I'm a lover of Kickstarter, so I would recommend people just keep tabs on me on Twitter,
Hmm.
because I retweet everything that I back.
Hmm. Yes. Okay.
Uh, yeah, one more is Bob Sally is doing a Kickstarter for his Twilight Tavern series through Source Point Press. Definitely want to check that one out if you're a fan of science fiction. If you like Star Wars, you should definitely check out Bob Sally's work with Source Point.
And that's on. Is it currently on? Is that campaign currently on right now?
Yeah, it started, I think, the same day as mine.
Okay.
So
Okay. No, because now I may back that one too. Okay. All right. So when you mentioned about the people follow you on Twitter regarding the Kickstarters that you back, it's a perfect segue. Can you promote your social media platforms?
sure, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Eric Palicki.
Mhm.
Definitely sharing a lot of Manticore art and news as we go through this next month. But after that, we'll return to more regularly scheduled nonsense about blacksmith and just snarky commentary about the comics industry at large.
All right. Eric, thank you very much. Any last words to our listeners?
I just want to say, please check out Manticore, but also I really appreciate anyone who checks out my work in in any in any way, in any fashion, whether it's digitally, whether they buy it at their LCS.
Mhm.
I'm, really proud of the work that I've been producing lately. With my friends, that's the best part about comics is I get to wake up and work with my friends all day. And I just want to say, speaking of my friends, thank you so much, Jason, for having me back in such short order. I really enjoyed talking with you about comics.
No, actually, Eric, Eric, no, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming back. Thank you for your time. Just thank you very much. Um, so, and Eric, I wish you all the success for Manticore, Blacksmith, and Deadbeats. The reprints of Deadbeats Volume 1 and London Calling. So, and Eric, like I said, again, just mahalo. Thank you very much for coming back on the show. Thank you very much.
Well, mahalo for having me, of course. I hope I'm using that correctly. I don't want to.
No, actually, you are. Mahalo, mahalo means thank you in Hawaiian. So
Okay.
that's perfect. Now, for our listeners, if you're interested in backing Eric's Manticore original oversized hardcover graphic novella, please go to Kickstarter.com. The campaign ends on August 12th. Also, too, his unlimited series, Blacksmith #2 from Ahoy Comics, should be in your shops on August 11th. The preview code for that is JUN211214. And also, too, I'm not going to forget this one, too. Deadbeats London Calling will be in your shops on September 15th. That previews code that I know of is JUL211418. And the cost for that collection is $19.99. And also, too, on the same day as September 15th, also, Deadbeats Volume 1 reprint will be also in stores at that time as well. Do you want to add anything else, Eric, before I wrap this up?
No, that was fantastic. Again, thank you for that very comprehensive list of what I've got coming. Just the other comment would be that Blacksmith is monthly, so issue 3 3, 4, and 5 will be out in September, October, and November, respectively. So, just let your LCS know you want to subscribe to the full series, and, do me a solid there. So,
No, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you. And, and I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit. Drew, thank you very much for putting this episode together. Thank you for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
aloha.